Hello and welcome to Duck Chats. We're so glad you're here to talk about all things duck. It's my favorite month. I'm a little biased, but I can't help myself. Ducks are just so fun. My name is Brittany Sweeney. I am the communications manager at the Livestock Conservancy. And here with me today, we have our resident poultry expert, senior programs manager, Jeanette Behringer. Thanks for joining us today, Jeanette. And we have the wonderful Amy McKamey from, is it Heritage Meadows Farm? Yes. We're so glad you're here, Amy, to talk about ducks and specifically Ancona ducks. But before we get started with our chat today, which we're super excited about, we want to thank ManaPro for sponsoring Duck Chats and Duck Month this month. And we're going to play a quick 1-minute video from them. And then we're going to jump right in and get to our fun presentation and all the questions. So we'll be right back.
Champions, colleagues, roommates, and personal trainers. Whatever role they play, they're an important part of our lives. In their quiet way, and their not-so-quiet way, they keep us young, on our feet, on the go. They pull us back to nature and push us toward the next adventure. And as much as we count on them, they count on us all the more. To nurture their lives with the same commitment, to protecting them, helping them grow and thrive, treating them as well as they treat us, by giving them a little more of our lives. Because no matter what role they play, out here or in here, we're here to make their lives the best they can be. ManaPro, nurturing life.
All right, welcome back. Jeanette, do you want to introduce Amy? Tell us a little bit about why she's joining us today.
Yeah, well, I think you and I first connected over Ancona ducks. We've got to be going back, 3 or 4 years ago now, maybe longer.
Well,
forever. But Anconas are a really interesting breed because they were somewhat of a mystery as far as their origin and getting getting a good idea of where they came from and organizing people that had them. And you've been along that route the whole way, and it's so exciting to see the popularity rising, and they're really becoming a respectable homesteading duck, as well as people wanting to have a business with eggs and meat on top of everything else. And I will say the Ancona folks are very enthusiastic too. They love their ducks. So tell folks a little bit about yourself, or I understand we've got a slideshow you wanted to start up?
We do. Let me pull that up. All right. Go to the next slide.
All right. So I grew up in a small town called Butler, Indiana, which is up northeast part of the state. And just an interesting little fact about me, and we had some family members do a lot of history, and we've traced farming back to 1340 in our family. So definitely roots run deep around here with us. Was a 10-year 4-H member, and that's a little newspaper clipping of me back in my 4-H days showing ducks. So I've been showing ducks since the 80s, which speaks of my age a little bit. I went to Purdue and graduated with a veterinary technology degree and worked in the veterinary field for over 20 years, which has been extremely helpful with things here at the farm with all the different animals that we work with. So, yeah, next one. So my husband and I have a small farm here in central Indiana. It's called Heritage Meadows Farm. And we specialize mostly in heritage breeds. We do a lot of waterfowl, hogs, sheep, pigs, the geese, and lots of different breeds of chickens as well. So I know we're going to talk mainly today about the Anconas, but we work with several different breeds. We're slow food approved farm. We also do lots of rare produce and have a seed bank and things like that too. So we went ahead and put the Ancona history in here, and I'm going to let Jeanette help me with this part because she was a big part of putting this history together for the breed.
Yeah, so for a long time, everybody thought that they were a British breed, and the problem was we couldn't find any references at all for that. And I have a gentleman friend in the UK that's part of the British Waterfowl Society over there, and just a history fanatic when it comes to waterfowl. And I sicked Jonathan on the Ancona because I'm like, I'm told it's British, but I can't find anything about it. And he had access to all these really interesting archives and databases and books. And he looked and looked and looked and couldn't find anything to show that they were a British breed. But what he did find is evidence that they were actually created here in America. And he found this, announcement in the Waterfowl Club yearbook. And it was the announcement of a new breed called the Ancona. And the photos in that announcement, dang if they didn't look like the Anconas we have today. And so as it turns out, they really are an American breed as far as we can tell by all the evidence. And we're still trying to find more evidence. We found some mentions in poultry shows in the Northeast about Anconas doing really well in some poultry shows. There's got to be more stuff out there. It's just having the time to go up to the Northeast and do a little more digging. But it was kind of fun to find this out because we finally found some kind of evidence to the beginning of the Ancona. And so we officially look at them as being an American breed at this point. So yay, America. We got another duck breed.
All right, so the Anconas are a dual purpose breed, and they're a medium weight breed. So for those that don't know, ducks have 4 classes. There's a bantam, light, medium, and heavy. So the Anconas would be in the medium weight class. They'd still be considered a landrace because they're not approved by the APA yet, but hopefully we'll be able to get that changed. They're a decent layer, but they're also a fairly good sized meat bird. So it makes for a wonderful homesteading breed. The good thing is they don't really have any health issues. They're pretty hardy birds. They do really well on pasture. I know here we keep them on pasture year round, even in the winter. They, along with all duck breeds, can develop some leg and foot issues because those feet are made for swimming, not so much for walking. So they can have a few issues there. These guys are pretty active. They're really good foragers. They're chatty. I know I've seen in my group that I have on Facebook there that a lot of people tend to say that they're a quiet breed, but I don't really find any duck breed to really be quiet myself. But I'd say they're one of the noisier of the ones that I have. I find that the smaller the birds, the more active and more chatty they are. The larger breeds usually are a lot more laid back and quiet. These guys, I'd say, of the 5 breeds we raise, are probably the hardiest of all of them. So,
yeah, it's funny when you walk into a big APA show. The loudest ruckus out of like 10,000 birds will always be the itty bitty call ducks. They're the loudest little things. They're hilarious.
Yes, they are. So we're currently working to get these guys recognized. We're kind of at a little bit of a standstill right now. We've had several different setbacks and struggles along the way. Not everybody thinks that it's a true breed. Some out there believe that they're just a bad mark magpie, but there's a lot of difference in size and things like that that make these guys stand out. There's one of the biggest hurdles is we have to do some shows before we can even send the money in and apply. And the majority of the people out there with Anconas are, backyard hobbyists and homesteaders, and not a lot of people that show. So that's where I could really use some help and get some interest in getting some more birds to shows. COVID obviously affected getting to shows because most shows were canceled, but I think most areas, those are back up and going now. So hopefully there's some people out there that'd like to take some of their birds and get to a few shows. Another thing that has affected us is the fact that too much variety in this breed. And the whole process itself can be difficult because it's a 5-year process at least, or at minimum 5 years to get a new breed recognized. So.
Well, and there's good reason for it too, because they really don't want breeds added just because somebody wants to create something new and just automatically get accepted. There has to be a long process because otherwise they'd just be overwhelmed with breeds. And as you know, it takes a lot of work to get to a breed ready for prime time for that.
I agree with you because there's a lot of fads that go on in all the different livestock. And if it was a quick and simple process, yeah, you'd have all these new fads and new breeds come in. They'd be there for a short time and then nobody'd want to show them anymore. So I agree with you that the process is good. It's just long.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so talk a little bit about the variety in the breed and the colors. So many don't realize that each color is considered a separate variety. So I like to use runners or call ducks or something as a good example, because like in runners, there's about every color out there. But each one of those is considered a separate variety. So the same goes true with the Anconas. And when we are talking about working on getting them recognized, there has been a few that have been upset that we can't just get all colors in at once. And it just unfortunately doesn't work that way. We have to do one color at a time. So initially we've started working with the blacks because from what we can tell, that was the original color of the breed and it's a primary color. So that's what we're focusing on right now, is trying to get the breed itself recognized and then with that color. And then every other color will be an additional 5-year plus process to get each variety approved. So with Anconas, there's a lot of different varieties out there already. There's black, blue, chocolate, lavender, lilac, silver. And then you also will get solid whites and tries, which both of those are considered defects in the pattern. But there's a lot of varieties out there, and that is a good thing because it's fun having a flock with lots of different colors, but sometimes that can cause some issues. Getting an ideal pattern on Anconas can be pretty tough too. This picture here has got 3 drakes that are all an ideal pattern, but what a lot don't understand is only about 50% of the babies that you'll hatch will have a good pattern and not even ideal. Probably only about 25% will have an ideal pattern. And your other 50% will be a mixture of overmarked, undermarked, tries and whites. So, and then getting that ideal pattern on a ideal bird makes it for a little bit of a challenge to get good, show birds or breeding birds. So, and another point I wanted to make is breeding an ideal pattern bird to another ideal pattern bird doesn't necessarily guarantee that same pattern in the offspring. You'll still have that wide range of patterns pop up. Many people forget this is a dual purpose breed. A lot of people choose them because they're fun. All those patterns and colors and stuff are exciting and make for an interesting flock to have in your backyard. But we gotta not forget that these guys are there to be a meat bird as well. So when we're making our choices and breeding our flocks, we need to remember that we need to have good size, good egg production as well, but you need to do both with dual purpose. Another point is when we were working with the APA and writing our standard, we could only choose one egg color. And it's another topic that comes up quite often. Looking back at things, the original birds laid white eggs. So we decided to go that direction in our standard. So the blue and green eggs that you'll see sometimes, although are fun, that won't be included in the standard as we move forward. Type and size is more important than color and pattern. I always say you got to build your house before you can paint it or decorate it. So, you got to not forget about that bird that's underneath, and the patterns and colors are fun, but we got to work a little bit more on our size and conformation with these guys.
I love that house analogy. I think that's fabulous.
So I put all the sections of the standard in here. We don't have to go into each part. These birds here, that drake in the front is a good example of a nice sized drake, and he's got nice pattern to him as well. When we start talking about showing them, there'll be several things that'll be considered defects or disqualifications. So if you have a solid black or solid white bird, obviously that's not going to be very good. You do want bleed through, which I've got a picture of that later on. I'll explain what that is. You want color on the bill and the feet. So solid orange bill or solid feet would be bad. Lack of color in certain areas or too much. So there's a lot of different little things. Marked more like a magpie. Obviously, we don't really want that either. I've got weights down there on the bottom. So your old drake should be at least 6.5 pounds. And a lot of the people I've been talking to and working with, their birds are more in the 3 to 5 pound range on their old birds. So that's something that we really all need to try to concentrate a little bit more on, is size with these guys. And when it comes to showing, they allow a pound over what the standard is. And I honestly think a lot of birds that are at shows are quite a bit more than that over what the standard is. But I'm pushing my guys to be more in that 7.5 pound range. So that drake in that picture, he's over 7 pounds. I'm not going to go too in depth into all of the shape and conformation on these right now, but I will tell you that I've got this whole standard on my Facebook group in the files section, so anybody can access the standard and print that off for themselves. And I'm available as well to answer questions or to help anybody when we start talking about conformation, because there's a lot. We could talk an hour just about that, I think. I know what most people are more interested in, the colors and the patterns, and I've got that listed here. This little female has got a really good pattern and is a good example to use when talking about how they should look and how that pattern should be broken and how the spots should be arranged. So again, I don't want to take up all the time going through all of the little details, but you can find that standard, or I can always send it to anybody that's interested. And these are just a few more pictures for everybody to see. No two Anconas are alike, but the 4 birds in these pictures here are all really good examples of an ideal pattern. And you can see there is some similarities to where those colors are at. And then that 5th picture is a good example of what I call bleed through. In the standard, it just says brown shades. So this is a key point to get in the broken pattern. And I've talked to Holderud actually quite a bit in length about this as well. And it can come in different forms of rusting and penciling, and you'll see it a lot of times on the chest. But the main place I find this is actually under the wing. When I say what would be their armpit area, you'll get a lot of these feathers pop through. And your best pattern birds are generally always going to have that. Then I've put a few pictures of what would be considered, poor pattern. There's a little crested there. That's a DQ as well in the breed. So heavily marked, undermarked, a solid white bird, or the big picture there is of a tricolored. So that is lacking the black or the extended black gene. So you will throw those in pretty much every breeding flock, and there's nothing wrong with the bird. They can still make excellent layers or whatever you might want to do with it. They just wouldn't fit standard. And I stuck this slide in here. I had it from one of my others because I get asked all the time how we are able to keep all of our birds outside on pasture year round. And this is how we do it. So we don't ever close any of our guys up overnight. They never go in shelters. They have shelters, but they're never locked in, and it's because we use livestock dogs. So I know I went through that pretty quick, but I wanted to leave tons of time for us to chat and answer questions and things. So, and we can always revert back to slides, I'm sure, if we need to.
Mm-hmm. Well, the question I have for you is, and I know why I would do it, but why go through all the trouble of getting them accepted by the APA?
Well, I know one big thing is when there's no standard, everybody kind of does their own thing. So you get a lot of variations, and it's hard to keep a breed. I'm trying to think how to explain this, but you get so many variations, you almost have different breeds, because you have so many things going on. So to keep a breed true, you have to have a standard or something for people to go by. Another reason is to show them. We like to show poultry, and it's a fun hobby. And as of right now, it's a breed that can't be shown or taken to events and things like that. So that's the top two things that come to my mind.
Yeah, I think for my part, getting an animal to APA standard, I think also makes them more desirable and worth more. Because, if you're breeding animals to standard, then, you've obviously put a lot of work into it. And, if you're charging a good amount of money for those animals, it's that your customers are buying all of that work that you've put in ahead of time on those birds. So, I think having the standard and then staying to the standard is a good business decision, I think, if you are marketing breeding birds and breeding quality animals.
Yeah, I agree.
Mm-hmm. Brittany, did we have questions from the audience?
We do. I've got one here from Redina. I'm sorry if I mispronounced your name. She says, how can we go about getting involved with helping to standardize and show the breed? We are just getting started with ours, as in the incubator right now as we speak. I love to start from the beginning.
Well, that's great. I'm glad that you've chosen to get some Anconas and get started. A couple things. One, you can reach out to me directly. I'd be more than happy to help you out in any aspect that you need or help you with showing. I'd encourage you to join my Facebook group that we have. It's just Ancona Ducks. There's a couple thousand people on that page now, and everybody's very helpful, and it's a good place to ask questions and send pictures of your birds and put on there. And if you're not already on that group, one thing that you will have to do is become an APA member to be able to do shows and help out with that. So that would be another thing you could do ahead of time while you're waiting on your babies.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'll say your group's a lot of fun. I love all the posts. People just go crazy for their ducklings, and every chance they get, they're putting photos up there. So, you know, it really gives you a good snapshot of the breed, and like I said, just a group that's full of a lot of fun.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Great question. Thanks, Gina. I'm going to put this Facebook group up here so people can see it. It's at Ancona Ducks, so go and join after this, of course.
So when you're, we were talking earlier a little bit before we came on about, you know, your marketing strategies for the birds. So, you know, how do you get the birds to pay for themselves? Do you want to talk about that a little bit?
Yeah. I mean, it's not as easy as selling chicken. There's a little bit more to it, and it partly is going to depend on your area, where you live, what your market might be, or what your market can handle. We do a lot of different things. So we ship hatching eggs. We sell live birds, but then we also sell at farmers markets. So duck eggs are becoming more popular than they were, but they still can be a hard sell. There's a lot of people that are starting to have allergies to chicken eggs. So usually people with chicken egg allergies can eat duck eggs because they are different. We've at the beginning it was tough, but we used to sell single eggs just to get people to try them. And it worked because a lot of those customers came back immediately. We put them on sale sometimes in the spring. Yeah, it worked well. We would take the super jumbo, the great big ones that don't fit in the cartons, and I got these little cupcake holders, and I would sell single duck eggs, a meal in a shell, and it actually worked.
Wow.
So, yeah.
That's amazing. I never would have thought of that.
Yeah. Well,
a meal in a shell.
Yeah, they're not investing
write that down.
They're not investing in a whole dozen. You know, if they don't like it, oh, well, they just had the one egg, you know, and it's done. So it's not a big deal to where they don't have a whole dozen sitting in their fridge that now what are they going to do with them? And I've had a few people say they were indifferent about them, but most people were like, those are the best things ever. And you get them hooked on them then.
And do you find them, they're eating the eggs, or do they use the eggs for recipes, or how are they consuming the eggs?
Some of both. I know for me, I'm gluten free now, not by choice, but because I have to. And I find that duck eggs do better in a lot of my baking and a lot of my cooking than what chicken eggs do, because you need that egg to bind your recipes. So they actually are very helpful. So I've gotten several people that buy eggs from me now that do gluten free.
Yeah.
So
I'm taking notes.
So, and like for me, I eat an egg every single day. I eat a duck egg for breakfast. It's actually more like brunch because I don't eat till I come in from doing chores, but then I'm not hungry till late afternoon because they're filling. But one thing to keep in mind, if you're going to sell duck eggs, I recommend not having them on the water, not having them on the pond or creeks or things like that. Give them kiddie pools because you are what you eat. And it does change the flavor of the egg. So if they're on a pond and they're eating frogs and fish and things like that, a lot of people were hesitant to eat them because they're like, well, I had them and I heard that they're really gamey or they're really strong. They will be if they're on the water. So
what about on pasture? It doesn't seem to affect them like the water.
Doesn't seem to. So mine are on pasture and they have kiddie pools, so they still get to be in the water. They still get to splash around when it rains. Of course, it's crazy out there because there's ducks all over the place in the standing water. But I find, because as a kid, we always hated the eggs, but we had a little tiny small pond, and that's where our ducks lived. And I don't have them on water now, and you couldn't tell the difference of the flavor between a duck egg and a chicken egg.
Huh. I've never heard that before.
Yeah, because ours all eat the same food. There's difference in size and texture and things like that. But the general flavor, if you scramble them both, you wouldn't be able to tell a difference in the flavor.
Wow, good to know.
Yeah. And if you're going to be hatching, you got to remember you're going to have 50% boys. And it's even worse in ducks than it is in chickens. Male ducks are extremely aggressive breeders. So you always have too many males. It's like for us, I only keep one drake for about every 8 or so females. And I keep a lot more drakes than most do because I need genetic diversity in my breeding flocks. But if you're going to hatch, you got to have an outlet for those extra males. And not every place that butchers chickens will butcher ducks. So, for example, for me, there is no place in the state of Indiana for a small farm to have ducks processed. Not a single one.
Wow.
So we have to travel 5 hours to have processing done. Hence why we do once a year. So you got to have a plan if you're going to start hatching. Are you going to sell them all as straight run babies? Or what are you going to do with all those boys? So for us, it's the meat business. Is where all
and you were
stuff.
saying earlier because you're processing at an older age that you just have to adjust your cooking techniques in order to have them come out great. Because I imagine being older birds, they're probably really flavorful and full of that, as my husband puts it, the liquid gold that is their fat. And so how would you cook an older duck typically?
Well, we have most of ours broke down. So we have duck breasts, leg quarters. We do whole birds as well. But duck breasts, we actually cook medium rare, kind of like you would a steak. So you probably cook duck breasts too, I'm sure. And then the legs we do in the oven, and we, cook them. Depends on the size of the bird because we have a huge variety. But we do them in the oven under foil with just simple garlic salt, and then take the foil off at the end to crisp the skin.
Yeah,
that's usually how we do it.
I'll tell you my latest project, and I'm shopping for smokers right now, but I want to make duck bacon because I love duck bacon, and it sounds to me like those older birds would be fabulous for that. And thankfully, I can get some at the grocery store, but I'd love to be able to make it myself. And it's so darn easy, but you got to have a smoker. So I've been shopping for one around. Have you ever tried messing with bacon with them?
No, and we don't have a smoker here, and we have to have all of ours processed in a USDA facility to be able to resell. And to have them cure bacon, that means we'd have to take 2 trips down there, and so we just haven't stretched out to some of those other things.
Well, it's fabulous. It sure beats the pants off of turkey bacon. My husband doesn't eat pork, and so I've been relegated to turkey bacon for years, and then I tried duck bacon, and the heck with the other stuff. This is all, if I need a bacon fix, it's duck bacon.
Yeah, I imagine an Owlsbury'd make really good duck bacon.
Oh, I bet. Yeah. Brittany, we have any other questions coming?
I think we've got one. Let's see. Palomino Ranch wants to know what's the best resource for finding shows that might accept Anconas?
You pretty much have to reach out to the individual show itself. I know, like, I've got a show here in central Indiana, and they aren't going to have an Ancona class, but they usually will have an AOB class, an all other breed class. So for right now, that's what we need to be entering the Anconas in. You can't win past your breed because they're not approved, but all APA shows should allow you to bring them because you have to prove that you're taking them to shows before you can even go through the next step. And that's what we're kind of stuck on. And anybody that's willing to take them to shows, on the APA site, they actually have a form. And I would have to find the link, but there's a form for you to take to the show with you for the judge to sign, because I need a couple more of those actually to submit for the next step. So anybody that does take them to shows, if they could take that paper along. The other thing I recommend is printing off the standard and taking that with you as well, because most judges haven't seen these guys and don't know how to judge them or what they should look like.
Yeah, that's a common problem with a lot of heritage breeds. They go to these shows and the judges have no idea what they're looking at.
Right. Mm-hmm. The APA sometimes will have list of shows, and then there is also trying to think of the name of it. It's something Show Central is a website that lists shows all over the country. So you can start there and look in your state and find them, and then contact the shows directly and see if they have an AOB class that you can take them into.
Mm-hmm. For going to show, what kind of health testing are you doing for the ducks? You pretty much doing MPIP testing and AI, or do they require anything else?
It depends on your state. Every state's going to be different. I know for Indiana, there is no testing they don't even require MPIP on waterfowl. They do on chickens, but we don't have to on waterfowl. Although I'm a tester and I just certified my entire flock. That way I didn't have to worry about any of that. Have to do that for shipping. But each state's going to be different. So that's something you'd have to look up for your individual state and see what the requirements are. At most, my guess would be NPIP, but that's going to vary.
Yeah, and for folks that aren't familiar with NPIP testing, that's the National Poultry Improvement Program, which is a program by USDA. And what they do is they come to your farm and they pull a little blood, and they do the test right there, so you know yes or no. And it's Palorum typhoid and one other, I think. And then often, like for here in North Carolina, they'll also test the birds for avian influenza with just a throat swab. And you can be NPIP tested once a year, and it's typically inexpensive. I've heard in some states it can be a little more pricey than others, but we're really fortunate here in North Carolina. It's really cheap to get done, and I've got a wonderful inspector that'll come night and day, weekday, weekend. I mean, she's great. She calls me when I'm due for it. And but out in Indiana, it sounds like you don't have many testers. Did you have to take the class yourself in order to get NPIP?
Yeah, it's open to pretty much anyone. So I know for our 4-H club, they are having trouble having enough people help. So Alan and I decided to go get certified ourselves, since that way it'd be easy to get our own flock certified. And then, in Indiana, you just have to look up a list, and it's not by the state. It's all individual people that are the testers. So as far as pricing and stuff, it's up to the individuals to decide what they want to charge to come to your place and do that for you. And you can either do it for the year, or you can do it another form. And I'm trying to remember, I think it lasts 3 months. So like for the 4-H kids, that's what they'll do. And they don't get an NPIP number. They just have a certification paper, and then they can go to the fair. That's what a lot of them do.
Okay.
We have a related question to that. Palomino Ranch also wants to know, did you have to be NPIP certified to sell your eggs locally at farmers markets, or just to ship and show birds?
NPIP would be to ship and to show, but we do have to carry an egg license to sell at farmers markets. So 2 totally different things. We have to carry an egg license, and also depends on your market, but we have to carry so much liability insurance. That way, if somebody gets sick from something that you eat, that's required as well. So, and again, every state does things a little different. Sometimes every county does things different. I know here in Indiana, I have to have something from the Board of Health for every county that I would sell in. So even though I live in Hendricks County, we have to have a permit to sell in Marion County because that's where my market is. So, and then they come around and do inspections and things. And then the egg license, you have to send in how many eggs you sell every year. They keep track of all that.
Wow, that's a lot of hoops to jump through.
Yeah, there's a lot of different things. We have to carry license for everything we do. We have to even carry one for our seed bank now.
Wow.
Yeah.
So what, if people are asking the question, why Ancona, how would you answer them? Like, what are the characteristics that really stick out that you're like, if you're looking for one of the best ducks there are, why would it be the Ancona?
I say a big thing is they're dual purpose. So they can cover all aspects. I'd almost say triple purpose, because once we get them in the show arena, I mean, they're so flashy and bright and colorful, it's going to be hard to miss them, standing in the arena. So not many birds that can be a really good layer, be big enough to be a good meat bird, is a flashy, showy bird. And basically, they're also hardy. They're good foragers. I mean, they kind of tick all the boxes, I think. And they're fun. I mean, a lot of the kids that get them from me like them because they can tell each one apart. So if they go out and they like to name their animals, well, this black one here is this one. And, you got all these different colors and all these different patterns. And so for people that have small flocks, pet flocks or homesteading, you can tell each one of them apart. And even in my 50 to 75 birds out there, I can tell a lot of them apart. So I've got my favorites, of course, too. So, I mean, they cover all aspects of everything, I think.
Do you have a sense of their longevity?
Well, I know I have some females out there that are 8 years old.
Oh, wow.
So, and that's being on pasture that whole time. So they're not coddled at all. They're out there in the winter, 20 degree temperatures, negative temperatures. They're still out there. And so that's a pretty hardy animal, I think.
Sure. Can they hack the heat?
Yeah. I mean, of course, they're going to move to the shade, but yeah, they handle it just fine.
And what are you typically feeding them? They're on pasture, but they obviously can't get all their food from there. So what's your feeding regimen with them?
Because we have so many, we have our own mix that we have made up at the mill. So it's a layer ration, but we add a few extra things in that wouldn't be in a typical layer ration. So we have sunflower seeds, we have alfalfa meal, we have some extra things like that helps them, and also helps the color of the egg and stuff. When you're in drought time or the grass isn't good, or it's the off season, the winter, gives them some extra things. So it's mainly a layer feed, and that's what all of our birds eat, even our meat birds. We don't push them to get super big super fast, because I think that hurts you in the long run when you're doing multi-purpose. If you're doing just meat birds and you're butchering them all, it's fine to push them a little bit. But when you're doing multi-purpose and you've got layers, possible meat birds, possible show birds, you got to be careful not to make them grow too quick. Yeah.
And do any of them, have you found them to have large livers at all? I've been in researching finishing on poultry of late. Some breeds like naturally would have really large livers, especially when you're butchering like late fall. And have you noticed that with them at all?
Nothing that I've noticed, but it would be hard for me to tell exactly because all of our breeds go in together.
Oh, I see. Yeah.
They're not separated out, but I've never noticed anything abnormally large in any of them, really.
Okay. I'm just curious.
Yeah, that's what that stands out to me. I usually have a long line of chefs wanting to buy all my duck livers every year, though. That's the first thing to be sold out.
Really?
I have
Wow.
a waiting list. I have a chef right now that there was an issue at the processing plant last year, so they marked everything as pet food, all of our organ meats. So she's already waiting on those livers this year.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Wow. And what do they do with them? Do you know some of the dishes that they're creating with those?
I think she's going to do mostly pâtés with them.
Yeah.
I think that's what she likes to do with them. But she's at a new restaurant now, but I'm going to guess that's probably what she'll do.
Mm-hmm. I haven't met a pate I didn't like. I tell you, that's my downfall. You can have your sweets and your candy, and I'm like, oh, I love pate. Well, this has been great. I commend you on your stick-to-itiveness with the Anconas over the years. I know it hasn't been easy and a lot of work, and you should be really proud of how the popularity has boomed, and kudos on having such a fun Facebook group, because Facebook, you can have a lot of, but everybody there seems to be having a good time and just enjoying the ducks. And thank you for putting so much work into it. And
you're very welcome.
Yeah, Brittany, do we have? It shows. Do we have any other questions or?
I don't see any questions, but I'll let us go into our shameless plug section. So you can find Amy on Facebook at Ancona Ducks. That's the Facebook group we're talking about today. And I think your farm also has one. I think it's at Heritage Meadows Farm. Are you also on Instagram?
Yes, we're trying to be. We're very busy farmers, and keeping posts and stuff done this time of year is extremely difficult. So I do really well in the winter, not so good this time of year. But
that's okay. You're out doing the hard work. So, and I'll go ahead and put your website up so people can find you. Is there anything else you want to plug today?
I don't think so. Just know that I'm here for anybody that needs help or has questions, not to hesitate to reach out to me. I even have people send me pictures and stuff all the time and helping them choose good birds. And I'm here to help anybody any way that I can.
That's amazing. So yes, reach out to Amy. She's a fabulous resource and a wonderful mentor. You can find her website at heritagemeadowsfarm.net in case anybody's just listening in on the podcast. Jeanette, do you have anything? Do you want to do our member spiel?
Well, yeah, if you want to help breeds like the Ancona, certainly join the Conservancy to help support the work to keep our breeds going, and certainly buy products from our people. Amy being one of them. We've got a great products and breeders directory online and classified. So if you're looking for Anconas or Ancona products, you can find that there. And it's the best $45 you'll spend getting a membership.
Absolutely. And you can go to our website to find those resources. That's livestockconservancy.org. And big thank you to all of our current members and supporters. We appreciate you. Thank you for making educational content like this possible. Thank you for making it possible for us to talk to Amy, who's amazing. And a big thank you to ManaPro for sponsoring today's Duck Chat. We appreciate you. And if there's nothing else, I'll play our ManaPro video one more time, and we hope you'll be back next week. We're talking to cookbook author and chef Hank Shaw about cooking duck. So I'm super excited to learn how to cook duck.
Yeah. Amy, have you ever read Duck, Duck, Goose?
No, but I think I might need to get a copy of that book.
Oh, yes, you do. I got my copy, and I've been riveted by it. It's a really good book. And so he's going to be talking about cooking duck. It's going to be fabulous.
I'll have to try to be there for that one.
Absolutely. Come hungry. Bring your questions. And I hope everyone has a wonderful afternoon, and we'll see you next week.
Thank you.
Bye.
Champions, colleagues, roommates, and personal trainers. Whatever role they play, they're an important part of our lives. In their quiet way, and their not-so-quiet way, they keep us young, on our feet, on the go. They pull us back to nature and push us toward the next adventure. And as much as we count on them, they count on us all the more. To nurture their lives with the same commitment, to protecting them, helping them grow and thrive. Treating them as well as they treat us, by giving them a little more of our lives. Because no matter what role they play, out here or in here, we're here to make their lives the best they can be. Manipro, nurturing life.